Let's get started. So the night workshop is a comprehensive masterclass in building financial adaptability and programmatic impact. Let's talk about this workshop. This intense hands-on masterclass goes beyond the basics, offering a deep dive into the funding and program design strategies that mission-driven organizations need to strive in these uncertain times. Designed for grad students, emerging leaders, seasoned professionals, and the like, the workshop has earned praise as the most in-depth and practical non-profit training workshop that's adaptable to your average lay person. With over 100 participants already signed up for this evening class, from representations from over 38 states, this masterclass is a vibrant national gathering of change makers ready to amplify impact, build capacity, and create a systemic solution. Create systemic solutions. So, what are going to be your walkways from the night's class? First, you should have an actionable funding strategy to grow and diversify revenue. Your mission aligned program model will be built for scale and sustainability. The framework and templates, in turn, will take big ideas into fundable realities. Who is this workshop for? Again, grad students and scholars exploring real-world nonprofit innovation. Nonprofit leaders, funders, executives, executive and program leaders, social entrepreneurs, and grassroots change makers, funders, grant writers, and community builders. Whether you're whether you're trying to subsidize, whether you're subsidizing after a funding core or scaling for the future, this workshop gives you the tools, the clarity, and confidence to lead with strategy and impact. Step back. This is going to be an intense class. Hence, master. So I put together these approaches that we're going to be talking about tonight. Over the last 25 years, I've mastered in it. So much so that I created copyrights, applied for and got copyrights to all of my materials. That's how unique this information is going to be that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. But for legal reasons, and my legal team told me I had to show this first before I give you all of this knowledge. Let's get started. The state of nonprofits. The nonprofit sector is facing, and you probably know this, a significant wave of job losses. And this is driven largely by deep federal funding cuts, inflation, and economic uncertainties. Since January the 20th of 2025, at least 19,000 full-time nonprofit jobs have been lost. Fast forward to June 2025. Let's talk about 3-4 times that number. Added to this is government funding is shrinking. 84% of nonprofits that rely on government support expect cuts and are forcing many to scale back or shut down their programs. Demand is surging. 85% of nonprofits expect services demand to increase in 2025, while funding is being reduced. So, my name is Michael Randolph. I'm with the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. I'm the founder of this nonprofit, and I started it having over 35 years experience in the nonprofit sector. The mission of this nonprofit is to provide technical support to startup and existing nonprofits to enhance their capacity to service their community, especially during this current crisis. Specialization. Well, 3 areas that we specialize in. Now, give you the top 3. We also specialize in other areas. It's neighborhood planning, and economic development, and poverty-stricken areas. Social entrepreneur business models for sustainability, and developing national models and best practices. This is important because as we look at this change in funding, with a lot of people asking and less that can be given, funders are looking for models that can be reduplicated around the nation and has to show all of the makings of a national and best practice. That's what we do and specialize in as well. Since getting started, we have assisted, and that number is 3,500. Actually, that number now should be, and this is 2025, that number should be over 12,000 nonprofits, faith-based groups, businesses, individuals, other nonprofits, institutions of higher learning, and etc. in terms of the different types of training that we provide. And we provide an array of training. The night training is one of the most popular ones, but we also provide in-depth training and professional training at that in other areas as well. And we've done this in terms of our training in over 45 different states. That's the training part of it. In terms of doing business in 37 states, we did this by providing direct assistance to nonprofits in over 500, to provide assistance to over 500 nonprofit and getting that nonprofit started. So as you can see, we're planting the seed around the nation in terms of this new school, next generation approach. There are essentially 2 types of charitable organization. Most of you are here tonight for what's known as the 501c3 corporation. I also want to put in the blend because it's new and it's up and coming, and it's going to really have an impact in terms of how we operate, how we get monies. I want to talk about briefly the nonprofit limited liability company, which is an L3C. So what is an L3C? Well, an L3C is a hybrid business structure that blends profit making with social mission. It's created to encourage investors from foundations and program related from foundation to what's known as program related investments, in which they can bring equity into their company at low interest rates from loan by way of foundation businesses, banks, and things of that nature. A 501c3, most of you are here tonight about that, and the bulk of this class will touch on that. A nonprofit organization, a 501c3 is a nonprofit organization recognized by the IRS. It must operate exclusively for a charitable, educational, etc. purpose. It's eligible to receive tax-deductible donations from individuals and organizations. That's the limit of who they can get funding from. Let's talk about the differences between the two. Let's start with purpose. The purpose of an L3C is aimed to make profit while advancing a social goal. Keep in mind, an L3C is both a nonprofit and a for-profit combined together. A 501c3 must focus socially on charitable work. Let's look at tax status. L3Cs are taxable, 501c3s are not. Let's look at donation. Donations, you cannot get deductible in terms of taxes if you donate to a L3C. You can if you are a 501c3. Ownership. This is what's one of the other unique thing about this type of entity, other than the fact that it can bring in so many different sources of funding. It's the ownership structure. An L3C has private owners or shareholders, where a 501c3 do not allow any private ownership. The thing is controlled by the board of directors. So if a 501c3 was to close, all of its assets has to be given to another nonprofit, a religious organization, or the government. On the other hand, an L3C, if it should come to an end, then the people who started it can divide all of those assets among themselves. The other unique thing about an L3C is fundraising. An L3C can raise capital like a for-profit company. We're going to talk more about that. Whereas a 501c3 relies primarily on grants and donations. Let's talk about the different types of equity investments related to a L3C. An L3C can direct business investments. An L3C can issue debt and shares. For example, a low-profit, limited liability company can issue preferred shares to investors who seek both a social return and limited financial gain. In addition to that, when you look at corporate and equity investments, an L3C can buy ownership in an existing company. An L3C can buy shares and stocks, as well as sell shares and stock as an entity. It can merge acquisitions and venture capital. It also can be, it also can engage in private equity. It can engage in private equity in mature companies. For example, a firm buys out a well-established company, restructure, and aims to increase long-term rental value. L3C. Now, in L3C, also advantage individual by being able to start to have mutual funds and EFTs. For example, an impact aligned EFT includes stocks from clean energy companies around the globe. Here's an example of an EFT. The and I'm gonna wind it down here and go back, go really into the non 501c3. But I'm so excited about this type of entity, and I want to share it with you. But an L3C can invest in partnerships in other L3Cs. For example, a community-owned grocery store forms an LLC and offer ownerships units to local residents. Unfortunately, the current states that allow L3Cs are limited. So these are the states that currently authorize it. Now, keep in mind, if you wanted to create this model, you can also establish a foreign corporation in any of these different states. So if you're in Florida, you can say, look, I'm gonna jump over to Michigan and I'm gonna establish my nonprofit here. I'm gonna do this nonprofit here, but my nonprofit in Michigan, I'm gonna use as an L3C model, as opposed to my major office, which is my L3C in Florida, will still exist as it exists. But I can bring in funding from the monies that I get from Michigan back to the nonprofit in Florida. So that you can see, you don't necessarily have to be in these states in order to enjoy the strategies of bringing in additional dollars. That being said, let's jump into the 501c3. So some of your takeaways from the night's class is you should understand what is a nonprofit, what are bylaws, what's the purpose statement, what are articles of incorporation, solicitation requirements, the 501c3 501c3 application, etc. You should also, we're going to start with the 3 stages of a nonprofit. Then start to think about what do you want to do in terms of taking it to the next level. So a nonprofit is a tax-exempt organization that is designed for a public good. There are essentially 3 stages to a nonprofit. Let's start with stage 1. Some of you here have not gotten to stage 1, but you're here to learn about how to get to stage 1 and through stage 1. Stage 1. Stage 1 is what we call the emergent stage, the first stage. It's when you put together all of your legal documents in order to be recognized as a 501c3. This includes putting together your bylaws, your articles of incorporations, your state exemptions, your filing for your licenses in the state. All of these are part of the emergent stage for a nonprofit. Once you get out of the emergent stage, now we get into stage 2. Stage 2 is known as the intermediate stage. At this stage, you should be putting together your human resource development, your board training, your staff needs, and your policies and procedures. You're putting together now the infrastructure necessary in order to move forward to the next step. The next step is the third step, or the advanced stage. At this stage, you should be putting together or have put together your organization operation, your program development, your fund development, how you plan to grow as a nonprofit, your financial management system, your marketing, your public relationship, and in this time, in this day and age, your online presence and visibility. Okay, let's go to the next section. The impact playbook. Grant writing. Organizational mastery. The second part of the workshop, your learning objectives are going to be describe the different types of grants, describe how to create a program design, learn how to identify research tools available to grant seekers. There's literally over 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 different possible funding sources that's out there that most people don't know about. Congratulations, tonight you will. The other thing we want to learn from this class tonight is to learn what do funders look for in making an award on a grant. You should be able to describe the proposal writing process, describe how to create an organizational infrastructure. It is so critical because in order to get funding, you want to have definitely an infrastructure. Then you should be able to talk about how to increase and diversify your sources of funding. And finally, you should be able to learn how to tell your story to increase your funding opportunities. So what do funders consider when they're looking at funding an organization? Well, one of the things they look for is what is your sustainable funding model? They also look at how is your organization different from another organization. They look at what hard and soft data supports your position of the need and the problem. We're going to talk a little in depth about hard and soft data when we dive deeper into the workshop. The other thing that funders look for is what are your measurement tools. We're going to talk about tools and how to create those tools. The funder also want to know the reason for the nonprofits getting started. They want to know what is your value. They want to see network, partnership, and collaborations. The thing that they hone in on everything, the thing that they hone in on first is your accounting practices, making sure you have your accounting practices together. So in that sense, funders look for plausible, feasible, sustainable, sellable, and fundable programs. Let's talk a little bit more about what the funders look for. What they look for and what they want to see is certain types of benefits. For example, they're looking for cost benefit. For every dollar you spend, what's the return on social or economic value? They look for cost effectiveness. Are you achieving more outcomes per dollar than similar programs? They look for scalability and efficiency. Can your model grow without cost blooming? And where are you using the resource? And are you using resources wisely? They look for sustainabilities. Are you building long-term capacity? And finally, they look for your reach and your equity. Are you serving high need or underserved population in a meaningful way? Now, let's talk about the different types of grants. Starting with the first type of grant is known as an unrestricted grants. These restricted grants are far inferior, but restricted grants funds may be used for general support purposes. Most grants are known as restricted. That is, you're basically limited on how you can use those funding. The first type of funding, and most of you are familiar with this, is program or project grants. This is when you want to get funding to do a program. The next is seed money. Seed money is important when you're just getting started in order to build your capacity. It's also can be used if you want to put together a pilot program and you need seed money to get it off the ground. Capital grants. These grants is when you want to do construction, renovation, things of that nature, land acquisition. The next type of funding that the funders look at is known as challenge funding. That is, they will give you funding, but you have to come up with a percent of the amount that you're seeking. If you're asking for 100,000, they would say you come up with 80,000, and we'll come up with the other 20,000. That's why this class is so important to learn about where are those grants and funders from that we can leverage dollars like this and do deal. And then finally, in-kind support, pro bono work, very important in terms of funding. So now let's talk about the different types of funders. Let's start with the different sources. There are basically 5 different types of sources. You got the individual, your family and community foundation, you got your corporate foundation, you got your federated uh, funding source like United Way, and then you got our government funding sources. There are advantages and disadvantages to going after these type of fundings. That's why when you after you sign up and attend this class, we're going to email you this PowerPoint presentation so that you can look at what are those advantages and disadvantages. There's too much information that we're going to cover to go in there, but just know what the sources are. Again, there are literally tons of money that's out there. That being the case, where is the money? Where do we go at to actually seek and get these funding? One way is using grants.gov. This is a primary portal for launching and applying for federal grants. Even though the federal grants are down, you still can go after federal grants. The next place you can go to look for grants is what's known as Grant Station. This is a subscription-based resource for tackling private and government grants with training and strategy support. Foundation Center is the gold standard. It's now called Candid.gov. This is a go-to hub for researching private foundation grants and funding streams. Tennessee funding trends. The Foundation Center there, you probably find one of the most in-depth, comprehensive lists of different funders is out there. We're talking about at least anywhere 15, 20, 25,000 different, and this is just putting it conservative, that you can tap into with the Foundation Center. Keep in mind, folks, when it comes to going after dollars, contract to Papa Leaf, you can't go to Google and type in and say, I want funding. Because most of these people that get funding, they're not on the web like that. They are exclusive. So you have to go to an exclusive location like a foundation center, like a grant station in order to find them. The other, and probably one of the most newest forms of being able to go after grants is what's known as artificial intelligence. Keep in mind, without an understanding of all the things that we're going to talk about in this class, using artificial intelligence by itself is meaninglessness. It's meaningless. Once you're able to gather all the information you want to teach tonight and then reapply using artificial intelligence, you can change the narrative. This is what we need about how do you begin to cut costs, but yet deliver at a higher pace. And that's what funders look for. Artificial intelligence is going to allow you to do this. So now, that being said, how do we increase our opportunities of getting those funding? It's very competitive out here. And it's even more competitive since so many nonprofits are shutting down and since the government is now defunding so many programs. So here's some things that you should do in order to increase your chances of getting that particular grant. First, request an application or form from request application forms and guidelines when you're going after the grant, so you can see exactly what it is that that funder wants you to do. Call a past trainee. They're firsthand on how to structure those proposals, overcome challenges, and manage reporting. And you can find these past grantees at the Foundation Center. Let's say, for example, Bank of America, who funded the funds at Bank of America last year, who was the person that received that grant. Contact that person and ask these questions. Next, call a past reviewer, if possible. Gain insight into how applications were evaluated. What stands out and what falls flat by connecting to reviewers. You can do this, and most times you can find who that person that reviewed the grant that the funder gave. And then lastly but not least, contact the program officer. Okay, now let's start to get into another level of understanding. Let's starting off with being able to understand what the problem is. Because if there is no problem, there is no money. And if you cannot articulate that problem, there is no money. This section is defining the challenges, program statements, and need areas. So let's talk about the different components. First, one of the components of a need statement is that it should be project focused and contents. Making sure that you are clear, making sure you open with a compelling summary of the issues your project is addressing. Identify the population affected and the specific conditions you intend to improve. Second, statistical and research-based evidence. I'm not messing that word up. Incorporate up-to-date quantitative data from reliable sources. Also, blend in quantitative research, like from community interviews, studies, and things of that nature. Quantitative and qualitative research is critical to gathering the information. We're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. The next thing related to the needs statement is human and societal dimension. Describe the problem in relatable human terms. Go beyond those numbers and show the impact on individuals and communities. Fourth, feasibility and reliance to your organizational goal. Demonstrate why your organization is uniquely suited to tackle this particular issue. 5, the significance of the problem. Emphasize the urgency of addressing this issue now. 6, anticipate outcomes and societal benefit. Describe how addressing this problem will produce tangible outputs and long-term public value. 7, foundation for your methods and your timeline. Set the stage in your project activities. Establish your proposal solution isn't just a visionary, but that is grounded in proven methods with clear milestones and measurable progress indicators. Now that we understand the problem, now let's talk about putting together the program. This session is called Program Development, from concept to completion. Even before we can begin to talk about creating a program, we have to have some conceptualization as to what's going on. This section I label from idea to proposal, the conceptualization process. Let's talk about 3 elements of conceptualization that you want to have an understanding of before we move to creating the program itself. First, you should understand what a goal is. A goal is the broad-based statement of what you wish to accomplish. A goal is really about the final impact or outcome you wish to bring about. Next, strategy. A strategy is a plan of action, method, process, or specific step taken to accomplish your goal. And lastly, objective. Your objective specifies the outcome of the project. In other words, the end product. Right. Now that we have a conceptualization, now that we understand ideally where we're going and know how to put the larger picture there, let's talk about the program. How do we take from the goal to the strategy to the objective to create the program? This section deals with program methods and implementation. It's a detailed roadmap for achieving objectives through strategic activities and milestones. Step 1 deals focused on the overview. That is the purpose. Provides a clear roadmap for achieving your objective. Your purpose, that should be your underlying purpose. Let's go to slide 2. Let's begin to talk about the key components of this strategy. Let's talk about part 1. Item 1, strategies and accomplishing objective. Under this section, you should be able to break down activities for each objective. set benchmarks and milestones, and justify your selected method of operation. 2, you should start to think about staffing and organizational capacity. You should outline personnel roles that you're going to need, as well as those responsibilities. Now, let's talk about, and this is the third slide, key components part 2. Number 3, facilities and equipment and material. You should now put together where specific locations and what are the required resources that you're going to need. Program administration and coordination, number 4. Define management structure and establish communication channels under this. Let's continue on. This is a lot of information, but this is what you want to do. You want to have a detailed program design. That's what funders look for. Slide 4. Target population and monitoring. Number 5. Target population and community engagement. I cannot overemphasize the need for community involvement. So many times projects be created in a community, but they really don't engage in the community. And this could come back and bite you. So under this number 5, target population, you want to describe engagement strategies and roles of those that are going to be benefited from the services. You should address how if any, recruitment challenges there are going to be and how you plan to solve it. Number 6, data collection and performance monitoring. You should, in this section, right, data collection, you should identify tracking mechanism like survey, sign-in sheet, but all that information you're going to need to show that you're doing what you're doing. If you're doing a program, track it. What are the sign-in sheets? Where's the evidence to show that you're doing what you're doing? Where's the survey? You have to be able to track it. This is what we call data collection and performance monitoring. As you can see, in putting together a real, markable, sellable, plausible program, you really get in depth. But stay aboard. We got some more to cover, but you're going to leave the night with that understanding that now you know the lay of the land. Also, when it comes to data collection, we're talking about outside, also making sure you're doing your reporting back to those organizations, and also you're complying with your ethical requirements. Okay, now let's talk about how to market and sell a deal. I don't care how good of a proposal you might have. If you can't market it and let people know who you are, and have a sales strategy, it's a waste of time. So this section is going to focus on marketing and sales. Let's start with slide 1, mission and market position. Your mission statement, should be clear and precise. Your target audience. Your target audience is broken down into 2 types of research mechanisms. One is called psychographic, which is that type of research that gleans what a person is thinking, and behavioral insights that deals with why a person is acting the way they are acting. So the target audience research is very important. You also have to be able to identify the community need. What problems are you solving and for whom? Also under market research, Also under marketing and sales. Sorry for that, the phone was ringing this now. That's what happens when you're doing something live. Marketing and sales. Stay with me, folks. Stay with me. This is a lot of very important information. This is about survival. This information that we provide tonight is almost a one of a kind. So let me continue on the marketing and strategy. The second part of this is talking about what are your strategies and your channels that you plan to use. For example, talk about your marketing goals. How are you going to increase awareness, engagement, and conversion? Key measures. You also want to look at key measures. That is, what is your core value position and your emotional venison? The next part of this is doing the necessary outreach, creating the necessary outreach channels. That includes social media, emails, events, and partnerships. Getting that information out. The next part deals with sales funnel snapshot. From awareness to donation to participation at the end of the game. Then in this third slide talks about the impact in your growth plan that you plan to put together. Your success matrix. Here's where you talk about engagement, conversion, and retention. Fundraising and revenue strategies. And then your next step, the final step, is immediate call to action and contact information. All of this goes into putting together a winnable program. We got more to go. Trust me, this is a lot of information, but you're going to have a chance to digest this because I'll be sending a PowerPoint presentation to everybody that attended and signed in for this class tonight. So that being said, we went through a whole lot. Now that we put the program together, now the next two slides is going to talk about what goes on top of the proposal and what goes in the back. What goes on top is your introduction statement. This is your credibility statement. This goes on top of the proposal. This is where you talk about your professional and organizational qualification and establish the significance of your idea. And when I say professional and organizational qualification, even if you say we don't have it, but we plan to bring it on board by way of rest. That's what you want to talk about, that particular component. So at the bottom of the proposal is called the conclusion. Remember we talked earlier about the introduction, and then the program itself, and now the conclusion. That's the way the packet is put together. Now, every proposal should have a concluding paragraph, maybe one or two. What's important about this section of the proposal is here's when you want to have a conversation about your emotions. Nowhere in the grant other than this session where you can get really emotional. And that can be the one leverage that gets you that grant with all other grants that's out there. By emotion, expressing your emotions, this is where you want to say, for example, the reason why I connected or started this nonprofit was because I lost my son to gun violence. Or you can say, the reason why I started this nonprofit because I experienced firsthand what it felt to be homeless. Or I experienced from family members being homeless. This is when you become really emotional about why you are starting a nonprofit. This is very important. Okay, now we've gotten through all of that. Now, let's talk about how do you tell the story? How do you take everything that you learned so far and tell the story? Because at the end of the day, it's the story that gets funny. Let's break down some information about how to tell the story and drive the support that you're looking at. Number one, build a foundation. Know your core message. Start by asking, who are you helping? What problem are you solving? Why does it why does why does it matter right now? What changes you're creating? And this becomes your why, the emotional anchor of your story. Two, choose proven stories. That is, your story should connect. That is, introduce a relatable person or situation. Character. Your story should highlight someone impacted by your work. Conflict. Show the challenge they face. Resolution. Show how your nonprofit helped. And finally, on this part, call to action. Invite the audience to be part of your solution. Number three, make it human and visible. Use real voices. Show faces, not just facts. Sell the story across your different channels, be it website, your blog, your social media. Your social media. In terms of social media, make sure you break down your stories into small bits, posts with visuals. Emails. Use storytelling to appeal and thank you messages. Events. Open a story that sets the emotional tone. 5. Make the donor the hero. Frame your story so the supporter sees themselves as part of the solution. Instead of we save families, 100 families, say because of your support, 100 families found safety. Another thing that funders look for is the return on their investment. When I told you this was going to be a comprehensive, holistic, master workshop, I meant it. Some of the things that you're going to be learning in this class, you would have to take 6 or 7 different other classes out there to attain this knowledge. A return on investment is critical when we're talking about investors just investing in your organization. So here is the formula for putting together a return on investment or an ROI. First, the formula is impact divided by total investment times 100 equals net value, equals value of outcomes minus cost of activities. I know that's crazy. Let's look at it and make it more simple. In this particular case, someone made a total investment of 10,000 into this organization. And this is how we're going to break it down. Mama, we need to start with the total investment. The total investment was $10,000. The value of outcomes include maybe helping that person be healthier, getting a job, being more safer. That equals 25,000. So now here is what the formula looks like. 25,000 minus the 10,000 divided by 10,000 times 100 equals 150%. So you're able to say to that funder, if you invest this $10,000 in us to do this program, we will give you 150% return on your investment. We take that 10,000 and make it into 20,000 in terms of value outcome. Take a little bit of time to digest this, but this is key. Okay, let's talk now about evaluations. What's critical in any proposal is for you to show what success looks like and how you plan to tell the story of success. So this is going to be broken down into different slides. Slide 1. An evaluation, the purpose of an evaluation is to measure project success. Some of the questions that you might ask during an evaluation is, were the objectives achieved? How effective was resource utilization? How effective? What impact did the project have? Slide 2, evaluation methods. So let's talk about the different types of methods of information, of the evaluation. The first is data collection. Data collection is quantitative, and by quantitative it means surveys, matrix, and attendance. Qualitative, for example, focus groups, interviews, or testimonial. The second part of this evaluation method is performance indicator. Performance indicators includes output. For example, what workshops did you give? How many people were trained? And then outcomes. Outcomes mean what behavioral change did you bring about? What knowledge improvement did you bring about? How is the person in a better position now because of what you did than what they were when prior to taking your program, getting into your program? Slide 3, data analyzing and reporting. What do we mean? Data analysts mean statistical tools, thermomatic analysts, and beyond. Reporting. Reporting in terms of evaluation, talk about the reporting, the written reports that you have to bring about, the presentations, your key insights and recommendations. That's what we mean by the reporting process. Keep in mind that artificial intelligence will get you this data analyst that you need before you even try to get statistical tools or thermomatic analysts. All this stuff can be done by artificial intelligence. The second part of this is slide 4, continuous improvement. This is when you begin finding utilization. You adjust strategies and activities. Next, future planning. This is when you begin to talk about how you plan to improve future grant proposals and program development. And finally, evaluation budget. This is when you talk about allocating those resources for staff, tools, and consulting. As you can see, a lot goes into evaluation. But, and we're going to talk about it later, how artificial intelligence can be used to gather all of this information. Let's continue. So let's talk about the different types of evaluation. Tonight, we're going to be talking about goal-based evaluation, impact evaluation, also known as logic model, process evaluation, also known as the way of change. Goal-based evaluation. Goal-based evaluations are evaluating the extent to which programs are meeting the predetermined goals and objectives of the organization. Outcome-based evaluation. An outcome-based based evaluations based evaluation facilitates your answering if your organization is really doing the right programs to bring about the right outcome. Again, outcome based. Let's look at what a logic model looks like. First, it starts with your goal. In this case, they want to reduce at-risk pregnancy among at-risk girls between the ages of 10 and 14 by providing pregnancy prevention and by providing pregnancy prevention, by providing pregnancy prevention educational program. Ooh, took so much to get that out. Okay, didn't mean to do that. Let's look at the different components of a logic model. The first thing the logic model addresses is the what. You can see everything in yellow. It addresses the what, or either the process objective. The next thing that the model addresses is the how, or the activities you plan to bring about in order to bring about what you want to bring about. The next is the who. Who is going to be responsible for doing what? Who's going to be responsible? Next is what are the expected outcomes, or it deals with the why. The next column deals with indicator measurements. Where's the evidence? The third column deals with data sources, that is the where. And then finally, times of measurements. This deals with the when. So the logic model deals with the what, the how, the who, the why, the where, and the when. The final type of evaluation model is known as a theory of change. This is known as a process-based evaluation. In other words, it shows you the process that the person went through in order for the person to have the outcomes that the person has. That breaks up into basically three columns. The first column deals with the community problem or the need. The second column deals with what is the specific intervention that you did, how much, how long, and what. And then final column deals with the impact, the intended impact. So these three columns deals with the theory of change, the community need, specific intervention, and intended outcome. The organization. So the key components of a strong organization includes the following. Your values. That is, what do you believe? Your mission. That is, why do you exist? Both of these, values and mission, focus on long term. The next column deals with your vision. Where are you going? This deals with your midterm. And then finally, your strategies, which deals with how will we get there, and your tactics, dealing with what will we do, focused on your short term. So when you look at your core components, you're talking about long term, medium, and short term. Organization, the why, the what, and how much. This is the basic infrastructure that an organization needs to be in order to actually go after funding. First, let's look at the organizational framework, the purpose. Define your mission and the position that you plan to address. Identify. Highlight qualification, experience, and credibility. Program objectives. Outline solutions and measurable goals. Implementation. Detail your workflow and your timetable. Remember we talked about program design? Next, financial. Include cost analysis and implementations and implementations if in action. Let me repeat that again. Include cost analysis and implications of inaction if nothing is done. Infrastructure elements include putting together your policies and your procedures and your staffing, having financial sustainability and physical control, and access to resources. One of the things that every organization should do is to connect, is to do what's known as the SWOT analogy. And that is, and this is a strategic planning tool that you use to evaluate your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Another key component that you want to have together, and we're getting down near the end. There's been a lot of information, but I think you're going to benefit from all of this information. You should also have and think about putting together your 5-year strategic plan, your goals, your strategies, your objectives, your tactics, your operation methods, and your budget to be inclusive with your 5-year plan. That final stage three is when you're ready to go after the large dollars. By then, you're going to have your business plan, operational plan, your financial management plan, your fundraising strategies, your safety and risk management, your marketing plan and branding, and your partnership and collaborative. Funding. Let's talk about how do you continue with a sustainable funding. The model we use is known as social entrepreneurship. It refers to the capacity to sustain a nonprofit, to sustain a nonprofit future by blending revenue generating activities with philanthropy support and government strategies. Let's talk about the key components. First, goal focus. Activities, it achieves both financial sustainability and a positive social impact. Earned income strategy. Nonprofit generates revenue through goods and services that align with their mission. Diverse funding sources combine public subsidies and charitable donations to reduce reliance on one source. And impact measurement. Balance financial returns with measurable social outcomes. This approach transformed nonprofits into innovative problem solvers that not only serve their communities, but also maintain reliance in challenging financial landscape. Like now, the budget. I'm going to briefly go over the budget. So the budget is more than a project. It's a statement of proposed expenditures. It is an ultimate way of expressing your project. Let's talk about the different type of costs associated with a project. The first is called direct. Next is indirect. Then we have what's known as called sharing, and then finally, in-kind. The approach to being ahead of the game if you're a nonprofit. And I say this to the last, it's to understand how artificial intelligence can be used to take your nonprofit to the next level. You can be a two-man operation acting like a 10 or 12-man operation with artificial intelligence. So let's talk about how you can use artificial intelligence to change the narrative in your nonprofit. First, you can use it for fundraising and donation engagement. So many software that you can use. You can use what's known as predictive analytics. That is, you can be able to pinpoint who are the very people that's going to actually be interested, or artificial intelligence can tell you exactly who are more likely to fund you. So you don't have to go after funding from everybody. Artificial intelligence can predict that. It can personalize communication. Artificial intelligence can draft tailored messages for donors. It can increase engagement and retention. This software by itself can do this for your organization. It can automate, it is automating routine tasks. For example, artificial intelligence can do data entry and scheduling. It can handle repetitive tasks and freeing up your staff. It can be used to recruit volunteers. The other thing it can be used for is data analysis and insight. This is important when you're going after money. Impact measurement, for example. Artificial intelligence can analyze your program data to assess the effectiveness, identify areas for improvement. It can actually tell you what you need to do to improve. And also it can trend forecasting. That is, it can predict future needs and challenges based on historical data. Artificial intelligence changes the lay of the land. With the knowledge that you learned earlier, combined with this right here, you will be unstoppable. Now, artificial intelligence can also help in terms of grant writing. It can assist in drafting grant proposals, policies, reports, saving time and improving on your quality. It also can be used for marketing material. It can generate engaging social media posts, newsletter, and promotional contents. Artificial intelligence can also enhance your program delivery. It can provide 24/7 support to people using your services, answering questions and guiding them to resources, even when you're asleep. Boom, we got through it, folks. We got through it. I'm hoping that this workshop provides you with an understanding of how to operate in this new frontier. We actually cover a whole lot of information during this workshop. So, thanks for attending this workshop. I appreciate you. I hope it gave you the knowledge that you need in order to go out there and do what you do and get your nonprofit started. For more information, get in contact with us. My email is Center for Nonprofit and Community at gmail.com. That's Center for Nonprofit and Community at gmail.com. If you think this workshop was impact, all of our workshops are just as impactful. If you just started your nonprofit, if you have your nonprofit started already, or if you just simply want to learn how to write grants, make sure you connect with us so we can take you to the next level. Thanks again.